Attorney Peyton Inge is with me right now, and we're going to talk about this. Peyton, I want to welcome you back to the North American microphone, sir. How have you been?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thank you, sir, for coming on board and joining us for a few minutes. Before we get into this conversation, it's going to be a lively one. I want to get some information out there for the drivers. Tell them what you do in the trucking industry.
Well, we defend truckers and trucking companies all across the country. We're based here out of Dallas, but we defend cases anywhere from New York to L.A.
Okay, outstanding. And thank you, man, for joining me on the program. And again, this video, very controversial, to say the least. I wanted to get your initial thoughts here. We're going to get into a lot of detail about this video. What was your initial reaction when you saw this video? Is the CDL holder, the driver, the big rig, clearly at fault with this?
Not at all. Not at all. And I kind of wondered about the individual that was driving the Volkswagen when I first saw that video, thinking what in the world she was trying to do when she saw that truck there. He couldn't have stopped if he wanted to, and he certainly didn't have any obligation to slow down. The cars in front of him did, and she tried to force her way in, thought about it, and then actually came on over. It was pretty spooky to see.
Okay. So you're saying he was not at fault in this case. So this would be a situation where this driver, the four-wheeler driver, the Volkswagen, could be charged in connection with this?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say charged. I typically tend to think of that in a criminal context.
Okay.
But in a civil context in Texas, I would tend to think that she would certainly be more at fault for that incident than anybody else.
Okay, and did it appear he was speeding up in the video? I mean, that was just the kind of overall impression that I got as it continued to roll on. I mean, as far as, being a legal expert, how would you view that? Did it appear that he tried to accelerate in the video?
Well, the first time I saw it, I had to go back and take a look at it again. But I think if you watch it real carefully, you'll see that in front of that semi, there was a string of cars that were adjacent to a flatbed semi. That string of cars in front of the semi at issue actually slows down. The semi in the video doesn't speed up. It's just that his rate of closure increases because the cars in front of him slowed down. You had the first car come in and take away some of his safe distance, and you had a Volkswagen come in, realized she didn't have the room, but she thought she was going to force her way in, and she actually hesitated at least once before deciding to come over and realizing she ultimately didn't have the room, but she decided to put that that driver's side door into the passenger side door of the semi.
Okay, and she was very lucky. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, that vehicle was pushed sideways up the road. From a litigation standpoint, do you think that the person in the car has a case for any kind of damages? If you were a judge and you had to look at this case, decided on its merits, how would you look at this? Is there any kind of a case here for maybe the four-wheeler to maybe go after the trucking company, or do you think there's no case at all?
There's always a case in something like this because you have two sides to every story. Okay. I think it's going to come down to credibility. What you see is somebody that looks like they're young, going to college. If you look at the license plate, that stretch of road, most of the semis there are governed between 60 and 65, and you do have some low hills. So what happens is the trucks that are loaded heavily have to slow down. That's what you saw with the vehicle in the right lane. He was slowing down a little bit. Because of the hill, it looked like. The semi in the left lane was trying to get past him, and there were a bunch of cars in front of him that you saw one vehicle come past and safely get in front of the semi at issue, and then you saw a second one try, and there was simply no safe distance for her to do that, but she wasn't going to have it, and she wasn't going to be told no. Even when the cars in front of that semi slowed down in front of him, she still came over. So, I mean, she certainly could file a suit, but I would hope that any jury in their right mind would throw her out.
Okay, and how would you present that to the jury or a judge? Say where you were defending the driver or the trucking company, just hypothetically. I mean, with the video, just absolutely clear the driver in your estimation. This I would imagine would need to be a very critical piece of evidence that needs to be presented if it goes to trial.
Well, the truth is what I would do is I would take a representative truck out there, and I would take a stopwatch, and I would show how long it takes for that semi to increase its speed by even 2 or 3 miles an hour. So you could pretty quickly, if you're familiar with trucks and driving them and whatnot, assume and demonstrate that there's no way that truck could have sped up, even if that was the perception. The truck certainly didn't slow down, and I think that would be the only issue is whether or not he had some sort of obligation to slow down, and I don't think he did. He had somebody that was trying to take away his established safe lane of travel, and that young lady just came on over, didn't care who was there.
Okay, now the overwhelming majority of the people that viewed the video on Facebook said the driver of the big rig was clearly at fault, that he should have backed off on the accelerator and allowed that woman the opportunity to move into that lane. How would you respond to that? I mean, a lot of the drivers have said, he was at fault by simply not decelerating. And you're a CDL holder. I mean, would have that been possible in your estimation for him to maybe just, to lay off that throttle, so to speak, and allow her maybe the opportunity to get into that left-hand lane? What would you say?
Well, that's a good question. The truth is he certainly, in my mind, had the opportunity to let off the accelerator and let her in. But that is a choice that every driver makes every day, 100 times on the way to and from work. In that particular instance, when you're trying to climb a hill, had he let off that accelerator, he'd have had to downshift several times, would have slowed him down a significant amount, and he already had that lane established. The first car came in and took away some of his safe distance, but he had to keep that throttle down so he could make it up the hill safely without impeding additional traffic by having to slow down significantly, which would have been required if he'd had to roll off the throttle. And, the obligation was with that little Volkswagen to merge safely. She's very fortunate to be alive. And
yes, absolutely.
I think it's unfortunate that so many of our younger drivers don't understand the obligations of the road, and then two, what it actually means to drive a truck and the physics that goes into that. And that young lady, she certainly had the last chance to avoid that collision, and you can see it in how she hesitates twice and then actually makes that decision to come on over, even when she knows she can't make it without running that truck off the road.
Okay, now probably, and again, I'm just going to presume here, but she did have her turn indicator on, which I did see in the video. I mean, does that clear her of any wrongdoing, so to speak, the fact that she had that turn indicator on trying to get into that left-hand lane? How would a jury look at that if they were viewing the video?
Looking at it, she still has the obligation to make the lane change safely.
Okay.
And in my mind, she did anything but. She actually put two people, including herself, in danger, not to mention the people behind them, all because she didn't want to stay behind that semi. And obviously, he's trying to get the same place or get someplace just the same as she is. And he's also trying to get past slower traffic, that being the flatbed truck. And she just simply got tired of waiting.
Okay, and that's when this thing all started to fall into place. And I totally agree with you. I mean, she is a very lucky young woman. I mean, this could have been a catastrophic incident, but you're saying the driver did the right thing. You're saying that the driver, if it was presented before a jury, would not be convicted. He would not be found guilty. He did the right thing in your estimation.
I certainly think that he did nothing wrong.
Okay.
I think that he made a decision not to roll off that throttle that could be questioned in hindsight.
Okay.
But I certainly think that as between the two, if you're looking at strict violations of the Texas Transportation Code, she messed up.
Oh, she messed up. Okay. And a lot of folks on Facebook are saying that this driver should have had his CDL revoked based on the actions. How would you respond to that? Should he keep his CDL in your estimation?
Oh, of course.
Okay. All right, drivers, what do you think? Jump in. It's 888-876-2336. Let me reset it. Peyton Inge is with me, noted trucking attorney, and we're talking about this controversial video that's up on my Facebook page, Sirius XM's Road Dogg Trucking News. It sparked a lot of comments. I mean, about 30,000 people have viewed this video over the last 24 hours on my Facebook page. Very interesting, to say the least. I think one of the main takeaways from this is that there were no injuries. This young lady that was involved with this 18-wheeler is a very lucky young woman. It could have wound up to be something that could have been catastrophic. Peyton is talking about the legal points and what is going to be ahead now for this driver. Drivers, again, the phone number is 888-876-2336. Peyton, before we go to the break, during the course of the video, I was able to hear the driver of the big rig on his phone. Would that be something that maybe a jury would look at and say, okay, that was a distraction? How would you view that? Could that just be simply just extenuating circumstances? Would something like that be taken into consideration at a trial if it went that far? Somebody being on the phone.
Most plaintiffs' attorneys ask for us to see the cell phone records. I think certainly it would be an issue, but I think it's more of a distraction than an actual issue because in this case you have clear video demonstrating who broke the law. And, if the driver, he certainly, I think in my mind, could have avoided that accident.
Okay.
But he didn't break any laws by not doing it, and she certainly had the opportunity to avoid it as well.
Okay.
Because she didn't speed up either.
Okay. Would you cite her? Would you, if you were the officer on the scene looking at this, would you have written her a ticket in this case?
Absolutely. I'd have written her a ticket for reckless driving, unsafe lane change, failure to use the signal inappropriately. I would have written her up for everything under the sun after seeing that video.
Goodness sakes. Okay. All right. Drivers again, jump in. Peyton Inge with me. I got a break here at 20 and 50 minutes after. As always, a weather update right now here on the Sirius XM Road Dogg Trucking Channel. Guys, look at it from this standpoint. Maybe winter is starting to turn the corner here in and around the Boston area. It was a cold start to the morning, some patchy black ice, but temperatures are going to be rebounding into the mid to upper 40s, and then some rain showers are going to be moving into the Hartford-Springfield area by 7 o'clock tonight, and then into the Boston-Providence area between 9 and 10 this evening. So more weather for you on Facebook at Sirius XM's Road Dogg Trucking News. Back in a few minutes, guys. I'm Mark Willis, live across North America right here on the Sirius XM Road Dogg Trucking Channel.
You're listening to Road Dogg Trucking News with Mark Willis.
Drivers, again, the phone number to call in, it is 888-876-2336. And again, attorney Peyton Inge is with me right now. He has been on the program before, of course, and he is a noted trucking attorney. He is in court defending trucking companies, defending drivers out there, and he has taken a look at this controversial video that I've got posted on Facebook at Sirius XM's Road Dogg Trucking News. And again, it's open to interpretation when you look at the video from the perception of it. It looks like the driver of the big rig is not letting this driver of a four-wheeler, the Volkswagen, in. It results in the Volkswagen or the four-wheeler being pushed sideways up the road. Thank God there was no injuries. Nobody was killed in connection with this, but the driver of that four-wheeler certainly was a very lucky person, to say the very least. It could have been much worse. And attorney Peyton Inge is with us talking about the legal aspects of this. Peyton, I appreciate you joining me on the program. I do want to get your Facebook or website out there where drivers can maybe reach out and find out what you do. Tell them, sir.
Yeah, easiest way to get a hold of me is just through the law firm's website. Chamblee Ryan is the name of the firm. CHAMBLEE Ryan.com.
Okay, outstanding. And you do have a rig yourself, right? You got a show truck that you
I
take
do. I'm actually
Okay.
driving it to Daytona Beach for Bike Week and the Daytona 200 here, leaving tomorrow morning.
Oh, outstanding. Very cool. And you're going to be at the big show coming up in Dallas at the Great American Truck Show in August.
Yes, sir. I'll be there.
Cool. Very cool. Looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be around the corner. Well, we got a lot of folks that are weighing in on this. And, again, the phone number to call in, drivers, it's 888-876-2336. I've got Jeff first up in Pennsylvania. Jeff, I don't know if you've seen the video, but a lot of folks have weighed in on this. Who do you think was at fault with this, the driver of the big rig or the car?
Well, legally, certainly when you look at the video, you see that the driver of the car should have never tried to merge over. So legally, she's certainly what would be at fault. But as far as the truck driver goes, he didn't have any legal obligation to give up that lane, nor any legal obligation to back out of the fuel or hit the brakes. But he had a professional obligation as a truck driver to do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, how would that driver have felt had that car flipped over, that girl been thrown out, and she's killed, and he's thinking, I could have backed out of the fuel and prevented that. How would that guy feel about that? I watched the video, and he had time to let off the fuel before she came over, and then he got down on the berm before he had hit her, he certainly had plenty of time to let off the fuel. And you don't have to let off the fuel that much to create more than enough space for a car to fit in ahead of you. So, you know, if I saw the video and I was that driver's company, I would take him in to a safety meeting and have a talk with him because, you know, had he killed that girl, there would have been a civil suit, and they would have found him at least partially at fault because he could have prevented it. So to me, it was just a stupid decision by both. By the girl to try to come over, but the truck driver certainly, as a professional out here, we have to look out not only for ourselves, but for everybody.
Yeah.
He just could have backed out of it and prevented the whole thing and paperwork and a lot of wasted time along the berm while they figured that out.
Okay, I appreciate the call, Jeff. And Peyton, how would you respond to that? That's what a lot of the drivers said on Facebook, that this driver had a moral obligation because professional drivers are held to higher standards to back out just a little bit, just to allow this woman the opportunity to maybe try to get in. How would you respond to that? I mean, the professional truck driving industry obviously is held to much higher standards out there. What would you say in response to that?
Well, I will tell you that that point is the number one problem I run into when you're talking to truck drivers, safety managers, or even to a jury, is because the general public thinks that because someone drives a truck for a living, that they are held to a higher standard of driving or some sort of superior driving transportation code that no one else has to abide by. The truth is, you know, truck drivers, you know, they're bound by the same rules as the four-wheelers are. And when we start putting a heightened requirement on that title, you know, or behind their name, it becomes much easier for a jury to find that that driver should have done something different. I'd agree with the gentleman's statement that you know, he could have rolled off that throttle. I don't think he had an obligation to do so under the code, but he could have avoided that collision. But I think, you know, certainly in a state that you know, would find liability for a driver only if their you know, negligence exceeds 51%. It's one of those deals where I think they'd probably put more of the liability for that collision on the young lady, and the driver would get away scot-free. I think he ought to be required to attend a safety meeting or two after seeing that video. But I don't think.
Well, I was going to say, from that standpoint, would you look at this as a learning tool? Do you think, in other words, that maybe trucking companies all across the United States are going to be looking at this video and saying, okay, this is what you should or should not be doing? Can this video be used as a tool, in other words, to help improve safety?
Absolutely, and that's one of my favorite things about video is that it provides teachable moments to your drivers. Yep. Most of your companies hire safe drivers. They are proud of their drivers. They're proud of their safety reputation, and they work hard to maintain it. That doesn't mean people don't make mistakes, and it doesn't mean their drivers couldn't do better in certain instances. So if you have a video or you have, the capability to monitor hard braking incidents, things like that, I always advise, safety folks to go in and look at that and say, hey, look, you didn't do anything wrong and nothing happened here, but at the same time, this is how we suggest, you do it better. It's no coincidence that your safe drivers, you've got guys that have, 1 million, 2 million safe driving miles under their belt, and it's no coincidence that they managed to do that without incidents. They simply are careful, and they're relatively cautious, and you don't see some of the aggressive type behavior that you might see with other drivers that you can use these videos to train.
All right, I got a break here. A lot of folks are weighing in on Facebook. Let's see. Greg Newman writes in, listening to the show, I totally disagree with your guest. Stephen Howe says, yes, the truck should have slowed down, but by law, he did nothing wrong except following distance. The fault was the four-wheeler the trucker tried to avoid hitting but ran out of road. And Greg Newman writing in, your guest said if the driver slowed down, he would have had to gear up for the hill. We get inconvenienced on the hills every day. If he would have slowed down, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I've been driving since 1983, 0 accidents. I didn't achieve that by acting like this driver. So drivers, hold on. Peyton, hold on. I got a break here for a few minutes. Again, the phone number to dial in, it's 888-876-2336. And if you get a chance, to check out the video. It's up on my Facebook page at SiriusXM's Road Dogg Trucking News. Who was at fault? The driver of the four-wheeler or the driver of the big rig? I mean, obviously a very dramatic video, and, this has been all over the news media as well. And we're going to talk about that when we come back in a few minutes and get to more of your phone calls. But first, though, time for a news update at the bottom of the hour right here on SiriusXM.
And now the latest from the Road Dogg Trucking Radio News Team on SiriusXM.
Some of the top stories: the Truckload Carriers Association strategic plan mirrors its mission statement and its corporate governance and financial oversight of the best in the association's history, but it takes concerted involvement and engagement by member carriers and allied groups if the organization is going to be moved forward with any type of relevance. That was the message of new TCA President Brad Bentley in his inaugural address at the TCA's 77th annual convention that's underway in the beautiful city of Orlando, Florida. And Mr. Bentley said, quoting, "The future of the TCA depends on those in this audience, and we need more involvement and engagement." He's going to take over the office in a couple of weeks, and like any other association, quoting, "We are in a race for relevance, and it will take your experience and your engagement and your wisdom to believe in our principles to move the trucking industry forward." The New Jersey State Transportation boss outlined his battle plans today for doing war with the advancing army of potholes that are popping up on many highways and interstates. Transportation Commissioner Jamie Foxx said the state is getting ready to spend about $4 million and commit 67 crews and 13 rented pothole killer trucks to the pothole fighting effort this winter. And most of that money will be spent to fill the potholes between March and April. And Fox spoke during a press conference today, said that the pothole filling effort probably will continue right on through the month of April. Drivers, that's the news. And again, it is 888-876-2336. Thanks for being out there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Willis. I am the host and reporter for the program, and that's why I've got on board Peyton Inge. He is an expert in trucking legal matters. He is talking about this video that has generated more than 30,000 page views on SiriusXM's Road Dogg Trucking News. Who's right, who's wrong? Did the driver, the 18-wheeler, make a mistake? Should he be cited, or do you think the driver of that car, the four-wheeler, should be cited? Peyton says that if he was the officer on the scene investigating this, he would have written her up for everything under the sun. We're going to get back to it in just a minute right here on the SiriusXM Road Dogg.
You're listening to Road Dogg Trucking News with Mark Willis.
Drivers, again, the phone number to call in, it is 888-876-2336. And again, we're talking about this controversial video that is up on Facebook, SiriusXM's Road Dogg Trucking News. It is dramatic, no question about that. It is a very dramatic video, and it can be viewed from different angles. And if it was presented before a jury, it would be up to attorneys like Peyton Inge to try to defend the trucking company that may be involved in this. What's going to be next in this case now? And Peyton's talking about what all of the legalese means out there. A lot of folks have weighed in as to who might have been at fault in this. SiriusXM's Road Dogg Trucking News, Brad Kuhn, writing in just a few minutes ago, says, reverse the roles. If a truck would have cut off a car and caused an accident, then what? Troy Jennings writes in a few minutes ago as well. He says, I believe the video should be shown to the younger drivers in their education. It's a perfect example of what can happen if you don't give big trucks their space. Peyton Inge with me, drivers, and again, any questions or comments, jump in. Peyton, this video has made the rounds in the news media, and it has gone viral, which means that over 1 million people have already seen this through various news media outlets out there. I mean, and again, perception is going to be reality for a lot of folks in the mainstream. They're going to see this video, and they're going to think, man, we've got a trucking industry that's out of control, that we need more rules and regulations. Will this incident maybe set back, in your opinion, some of the efforts that have been undertaken to try to clean up or clear up the image of the industry as one that's being really safe out there?
It's hard to say. I think that the four-wheelers have a misperception of trucks to begin with, okay. And I don't think it really helps when other truckers kind of start ragging on that particular truck, particularly when most of them have to admit that the other car was in the wrong. Just a question of how much wrong.
Okay. All right, let's go to the phones. Texas Turtle in Pennsylvania on the phone with us. Thanks for waiting during the break. All right, who was at fault here in your opinion? What would you have done?
I think they were both at fault, and I honestly can't believe what I just heard. By your guest's own admission, this truck driver could have avoided this accident completely, but because he would have had to slow down a little bit and slow his day down, he chose to barrel into the car, and that's okay.
Well, if we're talking about the same video, the car pulled into him.
Absolutely, but you said yourself, yes, the truck could have avoided the accident, but he would have had to downshift.
So could she, right?
Absolutely, but he could have avoided that accident. So you're telling me you're okay with putting a trucker back on the road who could have avoided an accident, but because it would have slowed his day down, decided to barrel into a car and possibly kill somebody?
Well, I think the point there is that she's the one that intentionally chose to come across in his lane. He certainly didn't break a law. What would you fire him for? He didn't break a single DOT regulation, single Texas Transportation Code. He shouldn't have been on the phone if he was on the phone. But you could cite her for at least 4 or 5 different infractions. Okay. That would be the problem as a safety manager.
And is that the way that the safety manager is going to have to address this? I mean, I don't know the name of the driver, obviously, or the company, but I'm sure it's going to circulate back to the company itself. I mean, how would you approach this if you were the safety manager? I mean, would you look at this or tell this driver, I got to pull you off the road for a little bit to make you undergo some more training, or maybe just, maybe move you to dispatch for a while? I mean, what would you do in this case? What kind of remedial action would you have taken?
I would absolutely make this guy go to some safety training.
Okay.
In my mind, it would be prudent. Yeah, absolutely prudent.
Okay, so you'd put him through maybe have him get reacquainted with some of the safety procedures that are out there. All right, and again, drivers, it's a very controversial video. There's no question about that. But again, it's very graphic. I mean, there's no question when you see this four-wheeler being pushed up the side of the road there. I mean, I can just imagine, what was probably going through her mind and what was going through the driver of the 18-wheeler. I mean, can you imagine him experiencing something like that as well? And again, the good news out of this, there were no fatalities, no injuries. But again, this video is making the rounds. Kemosabe in Texas, you are next up. You're on with attorney Peyton Inge. Have you seen the video, sir?
I did have a question on what model truck that was. We are liable to avoid accidents if possible, but I've had that happen to me where they turn in you so darn fast that you don't have time to react. But I know I've got a 379 Peterbilt, and I can't see a car up there by my front wheel.
That's absolutely true. I've got one as well, and you can fit a Chevy pickup under that the blind side there.
Oh, my, holy cow. Should he have been in the left-hand lane, in your opinion, Peyton? I mean, that's a lot of drivers on Facebook were saying that he should not have been in that hammer lane to begin with. What would you say to that?
Again, I'm assuming we're talking about the same video, and it surprises me that so many drivers out there are criticizing this fella. But if you look at the flatbed he's trying to pass, that's a slightly hilly area. The flatbed's loaded. He's closing on the flatbed at least 10, 12 miles an hour rate of closure. So absolutely, if he's trying to get around him and trying to get where he's going,
okay, he
needs to pass him.
Okay. All right. So he had every right to be there. All right. Let's go to L.A. in North Carolina. Welcome to the show. I'm sure you probably have seen the video. Very controversial. What would you say? Is the driver of the 18-wheeler at fault or the driver of the four-wheeler at fault?
Oh, actually, I have not seen the video, and I really probably don't need to see it because it happens all the time.
Okay.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Due causation. Everyone wants to blame the truck driver. When you put on your turn signal, it does not entitle you to come over. If the woman driving the automobile had just taken the time after the first hesitation, realized that she could come over, and slowed down and got behind the trucker, we wouldn't even have this conversation.
Yeah. Yep. Are we too quick to point blame at the driver of the 18-wheeler, Peyton? What would you say?
Always. And there's billboards up there in every single state about giving truckers more room.
Yeah.
It's a ticketable offense.
Right.
Now you can have a senator like Cory Booker and his crowd, and it's going to be all over the news for at least 10 days They're going to nail this driver to the cross. It's all his fault. Maybe when she pulled out in front of him, that he was looking for an out.
Right. Yeah, and the thing about it, too, we don't have the driver with us that we can maybe ask him questions, but we've got to just simply go on what's presented with that video. So, again, Peyton, are we just simply being too quick to point fingers at the truck driver with a lot of folks, like we touched on earlier, saying, you know what, you're the professionals out there, you got to back off on that throttle a little bit? Are we being too quick to judge here in your estimation?
Well, you can't. Go ahead.
Thank you, man, for the call. I appreciate it. What would you say, Peyton?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And everybody that's watching it from the safety of their computer has has the ability to quarterback from that chair rather than from behind the driver's wheel. And he certainly could have done things different. So could she. We had a trial that went to a jury last week. The jury was out 10 minutes, where a lady did something very similar to what you see here in this video, and she came in alleging all kinds of injuries and whatnot. But they were out less than 10 minutes, and we were able to demonstrate to them that just because someone has on or claims to have on a turn signal does not mean that a tractor truck can stop on a dime, and it certainly does not entitle that other driver to suddenly occupy that lane that an 80,000-pound vehicle is in.
I think this also, too, really illustrates the point to the listeners out there, and I'm sure you would agree, of the importance of having some kind of camera system on board that truck. I mean, a forward-looking video camera that can record actions like this. Would you agree with that? To me, this would be a wake-up call. If I don't have a video camera looking out of my truck, man, I'm heading to Home Depot to pick one up today. What would you say?
I absolutely agree with you there. I think that video cameras ultimately save lives. I think they save money, both for the driver and for the company, particularly for your fleets that have newer equipment and they have safer drivers. I think the video cameras are an excellent idea because we have the privilege of having this conversation because there was a video camera in that truck, and without that video camera, you can bet that it'd be a lot more difficult to even discuss who was at fault. I personally really like those video cameras, and I really like the fact that a lot of the companies now are able to monitor the preceding 30 seconds before a hard brake incident and use those as teachable moments, because I think those teachable moments are ultimately what make a safer fleet.
All right, I got a break, drivers. What do you think? 888-876-2336. Very interesting conversation. Attorney Peyton Inge is with me, and we're talking about this controversial video that is indeed very graphic, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys have seen or have been involved in situations like this before. Have we been too quick to point fingers at the truck driver? Should we be focusing more on the actions of the four-wheeler out there? What would you have done in this particular case? Did the driver have an obligation to maybe try to back off, if at all possible? Did the woman have the obligation to show more common sense and not try to cut a truck off like that, with the end result of her being pushed up the highway? First, let's get an update on what's going on with the weather at 20 and 50. Sirius XM's Road Dogg. Trucking weather right now, right here on the program. Chicago area drivers, look for the clouds to linger pretty much into the early afternoon hours, and anywhere that the clouds are hanging on, temperatures are going to stay on the cool side, probably in the mid-40s. Quite a change, though, from maybe a couple of weeks back when the Windy City was getting hit by a tremendous amount of snow. Look for the skies to clear out by late afternoon. Temperatures up into the 50s. More weather posted on my Facebook page, Sirius XM's Road Dogg. Trucking News. I'm Mark Willis, live across North America on the Sirius XM Road Dogg Trucking Channel.
You're listening to Road Dogg Trucking News with Mark Willis.
Drivers, hey, a couple of minutes left with attorney Peyton Inge. And Peyton, I'll tell you, a very controversial video, and I appreciate you joining me on the program. Drivers, you can weigh in on this. I mean, obviously, this is an ongoing story. I don't know who the driver is. I don't know the name of the company, but, man, if I can find out, I'd love to talk to that driver and find out exactly, what was going on. Because, I mean, video can be interpreted in a number of different ways, and when things like this do make their way to court, it's up to attorneys like Peyton Inge to be able to spell it out in front of a jury about what really happened out there. And Peyton, just to reiterate, for those that are tuning in, you're saying that the truck driver, the driver of the big rig, really wasn't at fault with this, that he did everything right. Maybe he could have backed off the throttle a little bit, but he broke no laws. Correct in that?
I would shy away from saying he did everything right, I guess. But
okay.
In my estimation, looking at this, he certainly didn't break any laws. The Volkswagen certainly did. And, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but that vehicle, if you watch it closely, I mean, she decided on two separate instances that she was coming over, regardless of whether or not that truck was there.
Okay.
And so she left it up to him to either lock up the brakes or hit her.
And I'll tell you, again, she's a lucky woman. There's no question about that. And I think probably one of the main takeaways from this is that, this could be used as a teaching video. That could be something that could be utilized by safety departments and trucking companies across the U.S., and maybe it will make some other folks evaluate their driving behavior around big rigs. Maybe that's something we can pull out of this. Let's go to Sean on the phone with us in Texas. Sean, I know you've seen the video, sir. Welcome to the program. Who's right here? Did the driver of the 18-wheeler, in your estimation, do the wrong thing? Did he do the right thing? Who's at fault here?
When I took my training, is the accident preventable or non-preventable? This was definitely preventable. Doesn't matter if you're going to leave it up to a jury. Remember, a hot coffee spilled on an old lady costs a lot of money to McDonald's. If you are relying on a jury to be sensible and common sense, remember, this is a big, bad truck going up a little wagon. Regardless of who's wrong, if you leave it up to a jury, you're going to ask for trouble. This thing was preventable.
Okay, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And Peyton, I'm sure that, since you practiced law for many years and you've been in front of juries before, I would imagine there's a grain of truth in that, right? I mean, you never know what a jury's going to come down with.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why when you are picking a jury and you have a case like this or any other, if it's a trucking case, you need to make sure you have a trucking lawyer that actually understands the concepts that are unique to trucks.
Okay, and in your estimation, though, maybe use this as a teachable moment, not only for the driver of the big rig, but maybe for the for the lady as well that was trying to get in. I'm looking at the video again. I've got it running right here, and man, I'll tell you what. Like I said earlier, just to reiterate, she's a very, very lucky woman. There's no question about that. And the bottom line, the good news out of it is that nobody was hurt, and indeed, maybe this can indeed be used as a teaching tool for others to maybe learn from it. Peyton, thank you, man, for joining me on the program. I'm out of time. I really appreciate you breaking down the legalese of all of this, and that's why I wanted to get your insight and see what you thought about it and how would a jury look at it, the various components of the judicial system. Again, website, sir, one more time. Where can they find you?
Yeah, just the firm's website, ChambleeRyan.com, CHAMBLEE Ryan, RYAN.com.
Outstanding. Let's do it again, sir. Thank you, man.
Sounds great. Thanks.
I appreciate it. That's attorney Peyton Inge, drivers on the phone. He has been my go-to attorney when it comes to trucking stories out there. If you've not seen the video, I really encourage you to check it out. Long story short, maybe the driver could have done a couple of things differently, like maybe back off the throttle a little bit. But Peyton says that he broke no laws. He said that there were no laws broken, and the driver would not be fined. He should not be cited by his company. He should not lose his CDL. The overwhelming majority of the people that responded to this story on Facebook are saying that the driver indeed was at fault. Did the driver have a moral obligation to back off a little bit? If you want to weigh in on it, you're certainly welcome to do that. Again, I've got it posted at SiriusXM's Road Dogg Trucking News. And